Hey everyone, welcome to the second episode of the All Bulls podcast. I'm your host, Phil. First thing first, I would like to thank everyone who listened to my first episode of podcast. I appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback, and I want to say, always feel free to post a comment, whether it's on YouTube or on SoundCloud or even both, to give feedback about my podcast and your input about whatever discussion I talk about the Chicago Bulls related. I'd like to take anyone for listening to the first episode and whoever listened to this episode. I want to also apologize that it took me long to upload the first episode on YouTube. I have a difficult time uploading the first episode on YouTube, but I finally got it to upload it, which I uploaded yesterday. So it's on YouTube right now and SoundCloud. I'll be putting the episode up both SoundCloud and YouTube for the future episode of All Bulls podcast. I know I say that just last week or on the first episode of the All Bulls podcast that I will post the second episode probably this weekend pretty much after the NBA draft. Talk about who the Bulls select or what they do on draft night. But today I decided to do the second episode, which basically I like to call this Draft Eve Special. That's what I like to call it. Like that? I just make that up just now. I will talk about the NBA draft for tomorrow, which is on 7 p.m. Eastern time I believe on ESPN. So I will talk about that, the NBA draft for briefly today, and the Bulls, what the Bulls need to address on draft night. I'm going to talk about some of the prospect. I know I talked about the NBA draft briefly on the first episode, but today it'll be a more in-depth, more input regarding this draft special. But first thing first, I want to talk about a major trade happened today, which happened I believe a few hours ago, which make it official that the Chicago Bulls traded Derrick Rose, point guard Derrick Rose, to the New York Knicks. And the deal exactly is the Chicago Bulls traded Derrick Rose, Justin Holiday, and the 2017 second round pick to the New York Knicks for center Robin Lopez, guard Jose Calderon, and guard Horan Grant. I'm not sure I pronounced the first name right. I apologize if I didn't. But anyways, they will headed to Chicago for the trade. I talk about this. Remember last week there were rumors about Knicks are interested in Derrick Rose, and I give my input about that rumor that I don't like that deal unless they attach like a draft pick, which they don't have any first rounder for this year draft. I'm not sure they own any first rounder next year, but we all know that they won't trade Porzingis, so I want to do this deal. I want to trade Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks, but now it's not a rumor anymore. Today it become reality, and it happens a few hours ago. I don't like this trade at all. This doesn't make sense and doesn't benefit both financially and roster-wise. You got two bad contracts. Robin Lopez. Don't get me wrong. Don't get the wrong idea. I don't hate him as a player. I think he's a solid player. He brings defensive presence, and he's pretty underrated offensively. I like him as a player, but I just don't like his contract. He is overpaid. I'm not a big fan of his contract. I've been told on realgm.com on the Chicago Bulls forum that Robert Lopez's contract will be much better once the salary cap goes up. So we see about that. I still don't like it personally. I don't like this deal, and and also Jose Calderon, which I just find out after the trade that Jose Calderon's contract expire next summer. And I do like Trey Grant, even though he has a terrible rookie campaign this past last season. Actually, I should say last season. But I remember that I want the Bulls to draft him last year. So we got him. He's a combo guard, but I still don't like this deal. I rather let Derrick Rose. I'd rather keep Derrick Rose for one more season and let him walk next summer than do this deal with the New York Knicks. And what's bad, what also is bad is that we include Justin Holiday, which we moved Justin Holiday, who we acquired this past trade deadline on February year 2016 when we trade Kurt Hiron to the Atlanta Hawks. And Justin Holiday, for a short period of time, proved that he can be a rotational player. He bring energy, bring athleticism, and a solid defender, and can knock down open threes. But we include him. That's what make it even bad with this deal. This is not a good deal for the Chicago Bulls. Um, that's all I have to say about this trade. Now, about the NBA draft, which is tomorrow, as I stated earlier. The Chicago Bulls owned the year 2016. The number 14 overall pick for the 2016 NBA draft. At this moment, who knows? Maybe the Bulls may make a deal tomorrow or tonight. You never know. Who knows? They may trade Jimmy Butler to Minnesota for the number 5 pick, or Boston for the number 3 overall pick, with those rumors we have been hearing for the last week. So you never know what's going to happen. So we see about that. But at this time, the Chicago Bulls own the number 14 overall pick in the first round and number 48 in the second round for the 2016 NBA draft. The Bulls after this trade, they opened a lot of holes they need to address. They need a point guard. They need a wing, a small forward, or at least a shooting guard to move Jimmy Butler at the 3. It's one of those two. Assuming if Jimmy Butler stay with the Bulls, they need to get some athleticism. They need reliable 3-point shooters. They need to get some youth at the center position. Felicio is pretty young, but I think he's suited better as a backup center. And Robin Lopez, solid player, but I will still look for a athletic 5 who is a rim protector to be off the bench for long-term future. Robert Lopez is 28-year-old, so he's not that old, so he's about right with that age. But I would still look for a young center too. The Bulls need scorers, isolation scorer, which I like to call it. Now they only have one scorer, which is Jimmy Butler. They need a lot. They need a lot of things to address. I do think I did talk about the draft on the first episode about briefly, pretty much. But I'm gonna talk about more in depth. The Bulls 14 overall pick they own. I'm gonna talk about the prospects. I believe there are three players have potential to be a superstar, a franchise player for this year draft class. It's Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, and Buddy Hield, who I think those three players are potential to be superstar players in my opinion. There are other players that might have potential to be a star in the league. Players like Chris Dunn, who is talent, and I think he has a tons of upside. Can be a superstar in this league, which is a possibility. I did say in the first episode that this draft class is weak in terms of franchise player, but I do think they have some dark horses, which I like to call it, dark horses that the Bulls could get. They may drop to the number 14 overall pick, um, which I will talk about in a while. I say this on the first episode that my favorite prospect this year draft is Buddy Hield, a shooting guard from Oklahoma. Um, he was average last season. He was averaging 25 points per game. Um, shoot the 3-point line behind the arc efficiently very well, 45.7%, almost 46% behind the 3-point line, and 50% from the field. He basically shoot 55.2% on the 2-point percentage. He's also averaging almost 6 rebounds per game. Like I say, he's a potential. I think he has potential to be a superstar, and he will fit under Fred Hoiberg's system. According to the NBA Draft Combine, his measurement with shoes, he's 6'5", which is not too bad with shoes, but without shoes, 6'3", which is pretty undersized for a shooting guard. But hey, you don't have to worry about playing without shoes, right? He is my favorite prospect. I know very unlikely the Bulls will get him. He won't drop to the number 14 overall pick. I see him drop maybe at most number 5, maybe number 8 overall pick, maybe at the lowest. But I have difficult time seeing him pass up number 5 overall pick, which is owned by the Minnesota Timberwolves. He seems to be like a Tom Thibodeau type of player who will enjoy having played for him. For coaching Buddy Hield. He seemed like a Thibodeau type of player. So I have a hard time seeing him pass after the Minnesota Timberwolves. That as for So that's how I see it. If somehow the Bulls trade Jimmy Butler for the number 5 overall pick, and I talk about this rumor on the first episode that if Buddy Hield was there at number 5, I will take him over Chris Dunn. I will probably flip flop between Buddy Hield or Chris Dunn if one of those two prospects are there for the number 5 overall pick, assuming if the Chicago Bulls traded Jimmy Butler to the Minnesota Timberwolves for the number 5 overall pick for this year's draft, assuming if that happens. Or trade with the Boston Celtics for the number 3 overall pick, I'd rather draft Buddy Hield there. I may consider Chris Dunn, but I'll take Buddy Hield with the number 3 overall pick. I did discuss about that on the first episode, so I'm not going to go too much detail about it. Now, assuming the Chicago Bulls only have the number 14 overall pick, first rounder for the 2016 NBA draft, as I say, the Bulls open a lot of holes. They need a point guard, they need a wing, they need athleticism, they need an isolation scorer, an isolation scorer, they need a reliable 3-point shooter, they need maybe a young big man in the middle, shot blocker to learn the ropes under Robin Lopez. Probably can learn some things with Robin Lopez. Um, they need a lot, and I say this that I think there are some dark horses for this year NBA draft, the 2016 NBA draft, that the Bulls could nab. I'm a big fan of Wade Bolden. He's probably my number one target, hoping for the Bulls with the number 14 overall pick. He's he has a good height for a point guard position. Nice frame. He's strong, athletic. Not the most athletic, but he is athletic, and he has the physical tool to be a good player, or even, dare I say, great player. Potentially a great player. What I like about him the most is that he has this, not only just his toughness, but you love you bring his what you call it, his a dog in him. He got a dog in him. He has this nastiness in him. He's a competitive player. That's what I love about him. When I watch him play, he has this nastiness on him. He's like you see a lot of players such as Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade. They have a dog. They have this killer instinct. Now, I'm not saying that Wade Bolden is the next Dwayne Wade, the next LeBron James. I do say he has potential to be a superstar in the league. Not right away. This may take maybe a couple or a few seasons for him to get adapt in the late NBA and to develop his game to the next level. So it may take him some season. I would say he's maybe like a project some sort, but I think it'll be worth it. I think he do have a great work ethic to improve his game. I love his physical tools that he brings. A good shooter. He's a good shooter. He's a solid shooter. So, and he has the potential to be a great defensive stopper. I actually could see potentially. I figure him as a lockdown defender potentially. The bigger question is, can he reach his potential? Can he use these physical tool aspect to the next level? Can he develop to be not just a good player, but a great player? I believe he can. I am confident, but I've been wrong about players before. Won't be the first and won't be the last. But I'm very high on him. He's averaged 14 points per game, 4 rebound per game, and 5 assists per game, which his per is 20.9, which is good. Not great, but not bad. There's a lot of things he need to work on. I do admit his ball handling isn't that good for a point guard. He needs to improve, but I think that that can be fixable. He need to improve his ball handling skill. He needs to work on that. He needs to work on body control when he attack the basket. He's not a really good finisher around the rim, which he needs to learn to finish better behind around the rim. That's I will say that's be difficult to improve. That it's a matter of finishing it. He just need to probably practice, learn to finish around. That's the only way. But the ball handling skill that you can work on to get better. That's for sure. That needs to be worked on, especially if he's gonna play the point guard position in the NBA. But he's my number one target for this for the number 14 overall pick, which I believe he's one of the dark horses in this league. Another one is Timothy Luau. He's a shooting guard and small forward, more like a small forward, which I believe he's 6'7". Um, he's only like 21 years old. Uh, he's stats according to his stats, he's averaged 14 point per game, 14 points per game, almost 15 points per game. He has improved his outside shot. To be honest with you, I haven't seen him play, and usually I give my take. I usually don't like to judge players if I don't see them play, but there are times I will give my feel about those players if I get a good impression of them when I watch the highlights, whether it's on YouTube or whatever. If I see them highlights, I never see him play, but I did see a lot of highlights of him, and I'm pretty eager. And from what I read about him, I'm very interested in, very intriguing. He's prospect. He's very interesting prospect, and he did feel the Bulls' need. He is athletic. From what I read, he improved his outside shot, and he's only 21 year old. He has potential to be a really good player. Um, a potential to be a good defender. A lot of people compare him as the next Paul George. He could be that. I could see the similarly, but right now he reminds me of Trevor Ariza. It's just not a bad comparison. Trevor Ariza is a solid role player, a good role player. Bring athleticism, can knock down open threes, and a good defender. That's what Timothy Luau remind me of. He has a decent ball handling skills, but not too. It's still a little shaky with his ball handling from what I watched from the highlights. He needs to improve his ball handling skills because Paul George, he has a better ball handling skills than Timothy Luau. His ball handling skills like a little shaky. Remind me of Trevor Ariza or Luau Deng in terms of ball handling skills. Not that great. But if he can work on that, improve it, and improve the other aspect of his game, I think he could be a terrific player to watch. Maybe a star. Maybe I do think he's one of those dark horses. And he's one of my I already said it. One of the dark horses. The next player I will talk about is Dante Davis. Wait, I believe I say his first name right. Yeah, Dante Davis. I don't think he'll drop far. According to some reports that he may drop to Milwaukee Bucks. The Milwaukee Bucks may be high on him. So we see what happens. He's only 19-year-old. He is very raw. He's a project, long-term project. It will take some time to get him to develop, become a very good player. But I could see him become a good player, potentially be a good player. He's only 19-year-old. He's very athletic, mobile, and that's what the Bulls could use. And he can learn under Robert Lopez in terms of life, basketball, the NBA, the speed, the NBA game itself, the speed of the NBA game. Learn from him. So don't expect whoever drafted him. Don't expect him to make an impact immediately. Or he may show if he gets playing time. Whoever drafted him, expect to be growing pains early on. Give him some time. Take some time for him to develop, and he could be. And once he gets there, he can be a really good player. That's something to look on, keep an eye on, and I wouldn't mind for the Bulls draft him. Center. He's pretty well offensively. He still need to work on the fundamental games, both offensively and defensively. He had potential to be a great rim protector, potentially great defensive player. I can see him right there. I can see him become a great defensive player in the NBA. So we see about that. Another player I'm very I see in dark horse is Domantas Sabonis, who is the son of Sabonis. I forgot his first name. Andre Sabonis, I believe. I'm not sure I pronounced his first name right. I apologize if I don't. Um, ahead of time. But anyways, Domantas Sabonis. He's pretty much a double-double machine this past season. He played for Gonzaga, sophomore, only 20-year old. He's about, I believe, 6'10". I'm not sure what his measurement, what his NBA draft combine. I don't think he did combine. I can't see. I can't find the measurements of his draft combine on the NBA combine. But anyway, he's a big man. He averaged 17.5 per game points per game, almost 12 rebounds per game, and his per is 29.3 per this past season. I think he can be a good player. I don't think he'll be a star, to be honest with you, but I can see him as a good player. His problem is he's not athletic, he's not mobile, and is he really, can he play the 5 in the NBA? I think he can play some at the 5 in the NBA, depending on the matchups. He might be more like a power forward. He probably that's his natural position in the NBA. But I do believe he can play at the 5. He's not a good rim protector. He's not a good defender or anything. His jump shot is. He need to work on the jump shots, the mid range area. That's what he needs to work on. But other than that, I won't say he's raw. So but I think he'll be a good big man to have. Maybe starter for some teams, maybe not all. That's about pretty much it regarding that prospect. Another prospect to look at is someone like Dejounte Murray from Washington, more like a combo guard. His jump shot, his mechanics on jump shot, from what I saw, isn't bad. He just needs to improve to be efficient with his outside shot and mid-range shot. But I think I do see the talent. I can understand why Bulls fans, whether it's from Real GM, ESPN Message Board, or other Chicago message board, are interested, want the Bulls to draft him. I could see why. He is a talent player, and he's a project though, so you have to give him a few seasons to develop, to work on. You need to work on, but I can see he could be a hell of a player. I think he's versatile. Actually, I was going to say he's versatile enough in the NBA to play both point and 2 guard, which I think, according to the measurement, he's like 6'5", so that's pretty good size for a guard to play both positions. And like I say, he's a project, so give him a few seasons, he can be a heck of a player. He's only 19-year-old, so he's pretty young, and it's not like the Chicago Bulls are contenders. They're not gonna be contenders for a while, so I wouldn't mind for the Bulls drafting him, even though depending who's left at the number 14 overall pick. I prefer Ray Bolden or Timothy Luwawu over Dante Murray, or even Tywin Prince. I'm not sure I pronounced his first name right. I apologize again that I pronounced some of the names wrong. So, anyways, speaking of Tywin Prince, I'm a big fan of him. He's probably another one of those players that are my dark horses. I think he'll be a very good player. He actually remind me of Jay Crowder in that sense. He played for Baylor. He's only 21 year old, 6'8", and he will fill the need what the Bulls looking for. And if the Bulls keep Jimmy Butler, he will take Jimmy Butler's pressure off on the defense end, especially the defense end. And he's stats. He played for Baylor, and he stat for Baylor last season. He averaged like 16 point per game, 6 rebound per game, and his per is 21.1, which is good, not great, but not bad. And he's he's a solid 3 point shooter. Not great, but not bad. I believe shooting around, I would say maybe 38% behind the arc, and that's without looking. So I might be wrong about the 3 point percentage. He still need to work on his outside shot. I see a lot of Jay Crowder in him, and he's athletic too. So he will fill the Bulls' need at the wing position. And as a matter of fact, he'll be my number 2 target after Ray Bolden. If Ray Bolden is not there at the number 14 overall pick for the NBA 2016 draft, because Tyree Prince will be my second target and one of those dark horses I will get the Bulls to draft. Sorry, I'm in technical difficult time with my internet for some reason. Anyways, another guy, he used to be on my list, and I was a fan, is Denzel Valentine. Actually, it's Denzel Valentine, a shooting guard, 6'6", from Michigan State. Good shooter, terrible defender, but from the reports, and I talked about it too on the first episode, that he has knee surgery and the same type of knee injury that Brendan Roy have, and that will scare a lot of team off, and I will avoid him. He was on one of my targets on my list who I like the Bulls to draft, but after I've read the reports about his knee issues, I take him off the list. If I was the Chicago Bulls, I will avoid him if possible. Even if he dropped to the 48th overall pick in the second round, I will try to avoid him. That's what I would do if I was the Bulls. And I'm gonna tell you who's my top 6 in order. I already mentioned some of the names, but I will mention again for you. My top 6 list for who I'm really high on for the 2016 NBA draft. Number 1, Ray Bolden. Number 2, Tyrone Prince. Number 3, who I haven't talked about. Wait, correct me. Yeah, who I didn't talk about is Malik Beasley, shooting guard. He is. I'm not sure. I think he has knee surgery, but nothing major compared to Denzel Washington. But he can do it. He's athletic. He has a good height for a shooting guard. Potential be a good or great defender. A good shooter too. He can do basically almost everything. He need to work on his ball handling skills. I can tell you that much. He need to work on his ball handling skill, but I wouldn't be too upset if the Bulls drafted him with the number 14 overall pick. Excuse me. And he's. I think he's one of those players that he could contribute right away. He may struggle at first once they enter the NBA, but until you get used to the NBA speed, the NBA level, I think he could be a fine player, a heck of a player, and he bring the athleticism that Bulls are lacking. He will bring what the Bulls need. Period. Athleticism, a two guard, being shooting, a good defender too. So basically, like a what he needs to work on the most is one of them is ball handling skills. He can win the up and down court in transition for easy baskets. A good transition player. A very interesting prospect. To say the very least. And as for my other high list, number 4, Dante Davis is right there. My number 5 also, and number 5 is Sabonis. Those are my top 5 players. I would consider. I am high on. For this year draft class, there are other players I would consider that are not on my top. Who are not I'm too high on, but I won't be upset if the Bulls select guys like Demetrius Jackson, who is point guard from Notre Dame, and he's actually a good shooter, but he needs to work on his defense. He needs to work on a lot of aspects on the point guard, how to win the offense, even though there's potential. He can't win the offense, but you need to learn more. But what he need to work on is defensively. But I see like a little upside with Demetrius Jackson. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it. As for second rounders, I think there's pretty deep for second rounders like the Bulls could get with a lot of talent. So I would probably trade up to grab certain players to look at, like point guard Gary Payton III. He can be high more on the defensive end, just like his dad. Like his dad, he was a great lockdown defender, and I could see him I can see Gary Payton III, a great defender. I wouldn't mind drafting him in the second round with the number 48 overall pick. Don Maker, he's 19 and is very raw and a project. Don't expect him to contribute, but he has upsides. He is unknown, and he's from out of, I believe, high school. He's only 19 years old, 7'1", but if you see the highlights of him, he's built for a big guy. He has a solid ball handler for a big man. But he needs to learn a lot of things. He needs to learn fundamentals of offensively and defensively and basketball, just in general. But don't expect him to contribute right away. There could be a lot of growing pains whoever draft him. I wouldn't mind for the Bulls to select him if he was there at the 48 overall pick in the second rounder. But he's athletic talent. He needs to get stronger too. He needs to bulk up muscle and hit the weights and gain some weight. Probably eat some steak too. Other players in the second round are AJ Hammons. Big question that the big red flag in him is he's lazy, poor work ethics. That's the problem with him. But with the number 48 overall pick in the second rounder, low risk, high reward. If it doesn't pay off, cut him loose. Second rounders, especially in the late second rounders, are pretty cheap contract and can become non-guarantees anyways. Malcolm Brogdon, shooting guard. I think he's something to keep an eye on. He's a 6'6" shooting guard from Virginia, only averaging 18 points per game. Senior, just finished 4 years college. Something to keep on, to look at. I think it's Caris LeVert from Michigan. His problem is health issue, but I wouldn't mind for the Bulls select him if he was there at the 48th pick in the second rounder, not the number 14, but 48 in the second round pick. Problem is, one of the issue is that he's been injury prone, and he has a I believe knee surgery a few times, but I might be mistaken. But I think he's a when healthy, I think he's a good player. But the big question is, can he stay healthy? That's a big if. He also needs to get strong. Especially, he needs to get strong from the upper body and his legs. He needs to get strong. But I don't mind seeing the Bulls drafting him. I see potential. He has a good. Yeah, I believe he's height for a guard. I believe he was measured with shoes 6'7". That's pretty good height. That's like remind me of like Sean Livingston, for example. But his health is pretty frightening. I will admit that. But number 48 overall pick in the second round, low risk, high reward type of thing. So I won't be upset if the Bulls select him for the number 48 overall pick, or even trade it up for him in the second rounder. So I don't want to be too upset about it. I already talked. I say Gary Payton the third. I meant Gary Payton the second. I apologize for the mistake of his name. It's Gary Payton the second. And let me talk about a little bit more in depth about Gary Payton the second. Besides, he's a high motor on the defensive end. He also a good rebounder for a point guard. He was averaging nearly 8 rebounds per game last season with Oregon State. 6'3", which is a good height for a point guard. He can score the ball. Not a great scorer, but not a bad one either. He'll be a solid selection on the draft, and I'm a fan of his game. His defense high more remind me some sense in a sense with his dad Gary Payton, who is the lockdown great defender back in his day. Gary Payton the second could be just like his dad in terms of defensive end. So we see about that. Another player to look at is Kay Fielder, point guard. But the problem is, he's undersized, 5'10", just like Tyler Ulis, which I haven't talked much about him for this episode. I did talk about him in the first episode, a little bit about him. But Kay Fielder can score at will. He averaged like basically 24 per game, 24 points per game, and 9 assists per game, and his PER is 29.1. And he's played for college. He's only 21 years old. I only see him maybe a backup role for the NBA, which is not too bad. But I don't see him as a starter. But he can score at will. He's not a bad shooter, which he still need to work on. His biggest drawback is height, just like Tyler Ulis. Actually, his height with shooting, according to the NBA draft combine, is like he's like 5'9", so that's pretty short. So I wasn't surprised if he being undrafted, but there might be teams to pick him up for the summer league, to fill out the roster for the summer league, and maybe for training camp for tryouts to make the team. And I won't be surprised if team sign him for a non-guaranteed contract either. So one way or another, I wouldn't be too mad if they draft him, even though I would trade down for him. But depending who's there, I would consider other players before I consider Kay Fielder. If Gary Payton the second there, I'll pick Gary Payton the second over him, over Kay Fielder. I did mention about Tyler Ulis. I'm not sure. I apologize again. I pronounced his last name or any names, some of the names wrong. So I apologize for that. Tyler Ulis is a very skillful player. I mentioned that on the first episode, and I'll mention this again. He's a very skillful player, and I could see him as a backup role, like I said before on the first episode, but not as a starter. He's height, not very athletic, and his quickness is gonna be what's gonna hold him back. That he's gonna have issue once he entered the NBA level. That's gonna be a big issue for him. I wouldn't be too upset drafting him, but I will maybe pass up on him. uh, because of that issues alone. So there's um, another player there. I think that's pretty much I summing it up. Sum up with this draft class. This draft class is pretty weak, as I said, in terms of franchise player, but there are a lot of dark horses um, to look into. Um, I think it should be interesting tomorrow for the draft. See what the Bulls, who the Bulls select with the number 14 overall pick, and the bigger question is, will they trade Jimmy Butler to Minnesota for the number 5 overall pick, or to Boston Celtics with the number 3 overall pick? We will see what happens. Um, Feel free to drop a comment, whether it's on. Tell me what you think about this podcast. Tell me what you think about the Derrick Rose trade, who the Bulls should select. Tell me who you want the Bulls to select for the 2016 NBA draft. What prospect you really hide for this year draft. Tell me, should the Bulls trade Jimmy Butler for the number 3 overall pick or number 5 overall pick? Tell me why or why not. Feel free to comment. Feel free to tell me what you think about this podcast alone too. Feedback's always, and I will say again, always welcome. I will upload this episode on SoundCloud and YouTube. As for the next episode, on the third episode of the All Bulls podcast, I'm aiming at maybe this weekend at the earliest, but maybe next week, sometime next week at the latest. I will talk about what the Bulls did on draft day, about whoever they drafted, and probably talk about upcoming free agent, Bulls talk, and that kind of stuff. So we see about that. What happens for the? It could be either this weekend or next weekend. There is a chance I may have a surprise guest. I gotta see what happens first, but there's no guarantees about it. So if there's no guest, there is no guest. Simple as that. I'm not gonna tell you who, but I'm gonna try to contact this person and see if he or she wants to be my guest for my All Bulls podcast. So because maybe if he or she able to do it, that'd be great. We'll talk about Bulls talk. We'll maybe talk about whatever. I will ask questions. He'll maybe give input. Who knows what we'll talk about Bulls in general, pretty much about the draft, or who what we think about the prospect the Bulls select, or what they do on draft night. So we'll see. But there's, like I said, there's no guarantee if I can get this guest. If there isn't, there isn't. So I'm going by solo, like I'm doing the last 2 episodes. So I would like to thank everyone who listened to this podcast. I will upload this today, or try to upload this today on SoundCloud and YouTube. And hope you enjoy the NBA draft, and have a good evening. And if I don't do another podcast this weekend, have a good weekend and stay safe, everyone. Good night.